Now let's say you like Android phones, but you don't want to spend flagship kind of money. If I had to choose between the Galaxy A57, the S25 FE, and the Pixel 10a, which one would I pick and which one is the best? Well, let's talk about it. Let me know down in the comments below which of these three you would pick. Pricing is somewhat similar between these three, starting at $500. Each phone starts with 128 gigabytes of storage and 8 gigabytes of RAM. You can also go up to 256 gigabytes for each as well. I think even 512 gigabytes for the A57 in some regions. Nice thing is these are fairly lightweight, with the A57 being the lightest at 179 grams. It's also the thinnest. Kind of weird to see an A series phone that's actually thinner than the S series, where the S25 FE is going to be the heaviest at 190 grams. You will notice though, the Pixel 10a is going to be the thickest out of these three. Kind of a small thing, but you will notice on the Samsung phones, they rock back and forth quite a bit. If you have this laying down and you just go to tap on the screen, where the Pixel phone doesn't even move. I also think it makes more sense to have the power button lower on the side, like on Samsung, but all three of these are actually pretty nice when it comes to build quality. And nice thing is you can use a physical SIM card on each of these or eSIM as well. I feel like the displays on all these are actually pretty nice for the price. You've got Super AMOLED on the A57, Dynamic LTPO AMOLED, 2x display on the S25 FE, and then P-OLED on the Pixel 10a. The two Samsung phones have the same 6.7 inch size versus 6.3 inches on the Pixel 10a. The Pixel 10a can also go up to 3000 nits peak brightness. It's quite a bit higher than the 1900 nits on the S25 FE and the A57. You can see how much brighter the Pixel is versus the other two. The Pixel actually has better viewing angles and the colors just look a little more vibrant. Could be because of it being a brighter screen. You can see how close it is between the S25 FE and the A57 as far as bezels. Pretty big difference between the Pixel and the A57. I know for me personally, I like how Samsung makes the screen a little bit wider, where the Pixel 10a is a little bit more narrow. It's definitely something you'll notice when you hold these in the hand. It just gives you a little more real estate on the Samsung phones, I think. Battery sizes are a little bit different between these three. The S25 FE has the smallest at 4900 milliamp hour, then 5000 for the A57, and a little bit bigger at 5100 milliamp hours for the Pixel 10a. I know when I ran my typical battery drain test at 100% screen brightness, the Pixel lasted the longest at 12.5 hours, where the S25 FE and the A57 lasted 12 hours each. Keep in mind though, when you're using these phones every day, the battery life is going to be quite a bit different depending on how you're using them, but in my testing, all three seem to have pretty similar battery life. Now you do have a fingerprint scanner there on the front with all of these phones. I'm not sure if I like how the fingerprint scanner is quite a bit lower on both of these Samsung phones versus the S26 series, but I guess that's something you get used to. Not a huge difference. I feel like it's just a little bit less comfortable to unlock the phone that way. The nice thing is you've got Samsung DeX with the S25 FE, which you don't get that with the A57. Surprisingly, even the Pixel 10a now has the Pixel desktop mode, where you can use an HDMI adapter to connect your phone to a TV, external monitor, that type of thing. And it almost makes it feel like a Chromebook versus just Android on a larger screen. The Pixel 10a does have some extras like a magic editor, real-time translation, but I also feel like Samsung has pretty similar things as well. I think it's just going to come down to personal preference. I really like the software on the Pixel phone. There's just a few small details that I like a little bit better on Samsung's. Like for instance, when you go to recent apps, you have to swipe all the way over to get clear all on the Pixel, where Samsung you can hit it right away. As far as software updates go, you're going to get the most at 7 years with the Pixel 10a versus 6 years with the A57, and then 4 years software, 5 years security with the S25 FE. There's definitely a good, better, and best between these three, with the A57 considered good with its Exynos 1680 processor, and the best being the S25 FE with the Snapdragon 8 Elite processor, which you can see by the benchmark results. Pixel's going to be better GPU performance than the A57, but then the S25 FE is going to be quite a bit better than the Pixel 10a. And you can play most games on all three of these phones. It may just come down to if you want a larger phone with Samsung or smaller with the Pixel. The Pixel 10a definitely feels pretty snappy just moving around the software, but if you want the more powerful phone for video editing, gaming, that kind of stuff, you'll want the S25 FE. When it comes to speakers, I think all three of these sound pretty good in person. I feel like the two Samsung phones are a little bit louder, especially once you turn on Dolby Atmos. It may come down to personal preference. Of course, most people are probably using Bluetooth headphones, but here's a quick sample of each just to give you an idea of how they sound. You've got a 50 megapixel main lens on the A57 with a 12 megapixel ultra wide and a 5 megapixel macro lens. I probably like the telephoto lens on the S25 FE a little better versus the macro lens. But again, this is probably going to come down to personal preference. You do get a 48 megapixel lens with a 13 megapixel ultra wide on the back of the Pixel. And nice thing is you can shoot up to 4K resolution on all three of these. You have a 12 megapixel wide angle lens on the front of both Samsung phones versus 13 megapixel ultra wide on the Pixel 10a. The S25 FE is probably a little better for zooming in with its telephoto lens. The A57 I feel like is pretty decent when it comes to photos, not quite as good as the S25 FE, but I don't know, I really like the photos, especially if you're doing portraits with the Pixel 10a. It may come down to personal preference between the Pixel and the S25 FE. I think if you're doing a lot of low light photos, I probably prefer the night sight on the Pixel 10a over Samsung. I feel like if you're trying to decide between the A57 and the S25 FE, I would go with the S25 FE for better performance, but then I also like the A57, how it's a little thinner and a little bit lighter. I still think the Pixel 10a is probably one of the better overall phones out there. I do wish it was just a little bit larger though. I feel like it's a little too narrow when using, but I don't know, maybe that's just me. But hopefully this helped giving you a little more information on comparing these three phones. Some of this will come down to personal preference. If I could only have one, I might go with the S25 FE, but I've got to say, being able to lay a phone down and it be completely flat like the Pixel 10a, I really like on the Pixel how it doesn't rock back and forth. It's just something you notice after using it for a while. But if you like phones, tablets, and other tech, I've got a lot more stuff that I'm working on as usual, so you'll want to keep an eye out for those upcoming videos. So if you've made it this far into the video, you may want to say thanks by subscribing, and don't forget to give a thumbs up if this video was helpful. This is Brian from Fishbee Productions. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you on the next one.